From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The latest John Deere technology unveiled. Machinery Pete gives us a look inside this really big green machine. The Biden administration missing a key deadline that could impact production of sustainable aviation fuel. So what happens now? Reactions from Commodity Classic as fires continue to rage in the Texas Panhandle. The West gets walloped with snow. We're following the latest developments right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the name on the cap matches the power of one's purpose. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, the largest wildfire in Texas history continues to burn. It's called the Smokehouse Creek Fire, and as of Friday, it had consumed over 1 million acres, an area larger than the state of Rhode Island. But that's not the only fire in the Texas Panhandle. At one point last week, 130 fires were burning across the state. Extreme winds not helping things, accelerating wildfire conditions that have proven deadly for both livestock and humans. Meanwhile, a multi-day winter storm hitting the west. This is a look at Donner's Summit on Highway 80 in the Sierra Mountains in California, where up to 12 feet of snow was expected, with a wind gust near the mountains of 145 miles per hour reported last week. Laura Aguirre has a look at those extreme conditions.
We kind of snuck through some ranches to drive up here and see it gone.
Ronnie Johnson is among many who've suffered devastating property loss in the Texas wildfires this week. The Smokehouse Creek fire, now the state's largest blaze with well over 1 million acres burned so far, could grow larger and even faster in the hours ahead. Whipped along by extreme winds and dry conditions forecast now through the weekend. The Storm Prediction Center warns of a critical fire risk through several states from Texas up to Nebraska.
For us right now, I think the winds are the main threat.
Powerful winds up to 75 miles per hour or even higher are forecast for parts of the West, blowing in to mix with heavy snowfall across several states, forming dangerous blizzard conditions and making some roads in the higher elevations impassable.
One of our tires, the chains, it's gone.
Severe winter conditions are expected to last for several days, dumping up to 12 feet of snow in places like the Sierra Nevada mountains. National weather officials say the safe travel window has closed. Residents now should hunker down and wait it out.
I'm stocking up. It's my second time here today.
Driving for many may be out, but you can guess where the diehards will go, blizzard or not.
This is possibly the best storm that we had in I think 16 years. Still,
even here, the threat of a winter wallop for some is still too much.
Took an early beer break, but I think we might take an early exit.
I'm Laura Aguirre reporting for AgDay.
And help continues to pour into the Texas Panhandle to help farmers and ranchers. Now, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service asking for supplies, including hay, feed, fencing supplies, cow feed, and milk replacer. The Extension Service establishing several animal supply points in the region to accept donations. A group called Rancher Navy is also on the ground trying to get help to ranchers in need. It says the need right now is for heavy equipment. Early estimates say at least 5,000 head of cattle have died in just one of the fires.
If you have the heavy equipment that can go out and help bury some of these cattle, we're going to need you. The ranchers are going to need you. And we need smaller trucks that can get that hay out to the ranchers that have had cattle and horses that have survived.
And the Texas Farm Bureau also establishing a wildfire relief fund. For more information, head to the website on your screen. And the fires aren't contained to just Texas and Oklahoma. A wildfire burned 71,000 acres in central Nebraska last week. The blaze northeast of North Platte was reportedly started after sparks from a mower ignited grassland through Lincoln and Custer counties. The fire destroyed one home, but no injuries were reported. The area burned was said to be roughly the size of Omaha. Are we getting a break from the wild weather this week? Meteorologist Martin Lorimore has a look ahead.
Yeah, it has been a very dangerous past couple of days for many parts of the country, seeing that snow up towards the west coast and, of course, those wildfires in Texas. Drought Monitor is showing that we are seeing still a good amount of that dry conditions across the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. So something we're going to have to keep a close eye on over the next couple of days, as we are seeing a lot of that rain staying out for right now. But we're going to be looking at some relief as we head into the last part of our afternoon and work week. So as you get into that Tuesday, still looking at a lot of that snow out toward parts of California, those Sierra Nevada seeing quite a bit of that heavier snowfall. Now, we'll start coming to an end as we get into that middle part of the work week. So the relief is going to be on its way pretty soon. There could start seeing maybe a couple showers popping in for those firefighters out there in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. Very much needed out there to see some of that moisture. We could start seeing it as we get into that Thursday and Friday, as another system will be passing its way over the central plains, hopefully clipping parts of those areas affected by the wildfires as we get into that Thursday and Friday. Now, you want to take a look at those snowy conditions out toward parts of California. It's over at Twin Bridges, sent by Sierra at Tahoe. They're seeing some very heavy snowfall completely covering those roads. It's definitely a bit treacherous on those driving conditions. Don't go anywhere. More on your weather coming up in just a bit.
The head of the EPA attending Commodity Classic in Houston on Friday, many anticipating an important regulatory announcement from the agency in regards to sustainable aviation fuel. But that didn't happen. The Biden administration missing a self-imposed deadline to update a key government tool used for calculating greenhouse gases. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us from Houston. And Michelle, what happens now?
Clinton Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack told producers here at Commodity Classic that the administration needs more time to work on the sustainable aviation fuel guidance, or the GREET model. And there is a working group that will be focused on making this important decision in the days ahead. Vilsack says there was a principals meeting Friday at the White House to resolve outstanding issues on the SAF credit model, or GREET, and those issues remain unresolved. He says this is a complicated issue and they need time to clarify what qualifies for the SAF tax credit and what does not.
That may seem like, from where you all sit, a relatively simple thing to do and it ought to be done. It's not. It's not, because this is an evolving industry. The notion of sustainability, I mentioned 205 practices that are currently engaged, that we're currently engaged in with climate smart agriculture in our initiative, and I've said all along that that initiative is going to tell us what works and what doesn't work. So there's still data being collected.
Ethanol industry officials say they're comfortable with the administration delaying the SAF decision if it means they'll get it right, and that includes their treatment of land use.
I'm okay if they get it right. I do think part of this, Michelle, has to do with properly valuing climate smart agriculture. And this is not easy. It's complicated, it's complex, and these models that are used are critically important.
Meanwhile, EPA Administrator Michael Regan says they're in the process of evaluating if they'll grant emergency waivers for E15 again for the summer driving season.
I will approach this year the same as I have in the previous years. I would also like to say that we have responded to the petition of the 8 governors. And, you know, this administration, as the Secretary has said, we're committed to E15. We're committed to advanced biofuels. We're committed to all of these things that are encouraging and helping our economy grow.
So the path for growth for the biofuels industry is still in question. At Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. USDA's Economic Research Service putting out this new chart about greenhouse gas emissions. It now says farming in the U.S. accounted for just over 10% of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in 2021. Now that's down about 0.5% from 2020. Now most of the emissions emitted is nitrous oxide and methane. EPA says industry accounted for the largest portion of greenhouse gas emissions, followed by transportation. Now it says total emissions were down just over 2% from 1990. New York State is filing a lawsuit against the world's largest meatpacking company, accusing it of making misleading statements about its efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The lawsuit, filed by the state's attorney general, alleging JBS engaged in so-called greenwashing by promoting environmentally friendly claims such as achieving net zero emissions by the year 2040, despite lacking proven practices to reduce emissions at its vast scale. Now, the lawsuit is seen as a setback for JBS, which is based in Brazil, as it tried to get listed on the New York Stock Exchange. In a statement, JBS said it disagreed with the Attorney General's allegation. Congress averting a partial government shutdown last week. The Senate voting to extend government funding to several agencies, including agriculture, on a short-term basis. Now, the new deadlines are set for March 8th and March 22nd. The short-term extension is the fourth in recent months. Lawmakers are voicing increased optimism that it'll be the last before Congress approves two separate spending packages totaling more than $1.6 trillion for the full fiscal year. The renewed focus on this year's spending bills, however, doesn't include a separate effort to provide military aid to Ukraine and Israel. France has banned using terms like steak and ham for plant-based products. Reuters reporting France became the first country in the EU to stop the use of traditional meat names for plant protein in 2022, but the measure was blocked by a court for being too vague and not giving companies enough time to adopt the new label changes. Now, the government's new decree bans the use of 21 meat names to describe plant-based products. It also limits the amount of plant content in certain products that use other terms such as bacon and chorizo. Speaking of plant-based, Beyond Meat announcing a plan to address falling demand and increasing costs. The CEO saying the company plans to cut at least $70 million from its operating budget. That includes discontinuing some offerings like its Beyond Meat jerky line. The company didn't say if layoffs are part of its cost-cutting measures. Corn and soybeans moving in opposite directions to end last week. We'll have analysis from Commodity Classic coming up. Plus, you won't want to miss what John Deere unveiled at the event in Houston. Machinery Pete gives us an inside look at a heavy piece of equipment. Soybeans ended the week with a boost, while corn sunk back down. AgDay's Michelle Rook is back with a look ahead to this week from Commodity Classic in Houston.
Grains ended the week mixed. We had corn and wheat lower, soybeans to the plus side. Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing is joining us to have analysis. Brian, it looked like kind of some profit taking at the end.
Well, it's tough for corn to go up when you've got wheat sharply lower. So wheat led the way lower, and we probably had a number of sell stops triggered on corn. But nonetheless, it looks like it's going to be a good hook reversal on charts. And that's something at the bottom of a range. That's important. So it's a signal for the end user. Look to get more aggressive. Sellers will probably be less aggressive. We'll look at today as maybe just a correction day, but it does look like the market's trying to carve out a low.
Yeah, I was going to say, with Friday's losses, we still had a higher weekly close on corn, and so you think we're going to be able to start to build on that, but it's going to be a slow grind, you think?
Well, I think so. A farmer's attention quickly going to move away from delivering on basis contracts and trying to decide whether they deliver or they roll, and now focusing more on field work and just the logistics of hauling cheaply priced grain for the fun of it isn't too hammering right now. So I think those who decided to hold on, they're going to hold for a bit, and that should tighten basis levels up in the weeks ahead.
Wheat market setting back on Friday, maybe following European prices as well?
Yeah, we had a pretty big slide in Paris milling wheat overnight, and likely with the up earlier in the week on wheat prices, traders were quick to put stops on there. So we think the stops got triggered on Friday to pressure prices. Still looking at world wheat, though, is problematic from the perspective that Russia continues to export at a cheaper level. So Russia still has its foot on the gas pedal trying to meet world demand.
And then we're going to be gearing up for the report on March 9th as far as USDA, right?
Yeah, you've got that. And we're not expecting at this point any significant changes. But as we move ahead, you also have to look at the weather forecast. And it doesn't look like there's anything in the very short term that would hamper the wheat crop or be detrimental to the winter wheat crop or hard freezes. It looks pretty good, actually, if you look at the extended range forecast.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, as always, Brian Doherty with Total Farm Marketing. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Yeah, we are really looking at a lot of that snow out toward parts of the Sierra Nevadas and higher elevations in the Rockies. You can see pretty much maxing out our snow depth meter out here again toward the Sierra Nevada, stretching in all the way up toward the Cascades as well. A lot of those areas seeing multiple feet of snow, and they will start seeing a little bit of relief, but the snow itself not exactly wanting to go away anytime soon. Precip will stay coming as we head into that first part of the work week, but it will eventually come to an end as we head into that second half of the work week. But the places that are going to see more of that rain rainfall is going to be the central and eastern parts of the country. Not expecting a ton when it comes to the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas where those wildfires are going on. So could use a little bit more relief there for the firefighters taking out those fires that have been spreading across those very arid parts of the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. And the winds, they still will be pretty troublesome out there. Something they've been having to deal with is those winds. So again, you can see these very strong 35, 40 mile an hour wind gusts making its way across the southern and central plains. It will get pretty gusty as we get into that midweek for those firefighters, but the winds will also be pretty gusty out toward parts of the Great Lakes, making its way as this cold front swings across most of the nation as we get into that first and middle part of this work week. Now, we'll eventually come to an end as we get into that next weekend, seeing a lot of those conditions getting a lot calmer. The jet stream is going to be showing as we see a bit of a dip in that jet stream. Now, here's the thing, as we get into that last part of our work week, it's going to help a lot of us because as we see this high pressure developing over parts of California, will push a lot of that snowfall out of the region. We could start seeing that rainfall making its way, of course, into the central and northern plains. There's going to be some snowfall in areas that get below that freezing marker as we head into the last part of that work week. Chester, California, no surprise there. Snow, high of only 30 degrees. Borger, Texas, it is windy and it is sunny and pretty hot, high around 80 degrees. And then Spartanburg, South Carolina, somewhere in between, temperatures in the mid 60s, expecting those clouds in the morning and afternoon sun.
It wasn't all about grains and markets at Commodity Classic in Houston. Machinery Pete has a sneak peek at what John Deere just unveiled. Commodity Classic in Houston, Texas, also offering up a look at a new tractor from John Deere. And you know, Machinery Pete had to check it out.
Well, I had a lot of fun last week in Houston, Texas at the 2024 Commodity Classic Farm Show. Day one of the show, I posted a Machinery Pete YouTube video on the tractor down here that had everybody chirping. Deere's new 9RX 830, largest tractor John Deere's ever made, 830 horsepower. Thing weighs 84,000 pounds. Of course, more visibility out of the cab, more floor space in the cab. Can do all the maintenance at ground level. Very cool stuff. But, of course, the factor that had everyone talking was the fact that it's no deaf. So check out that video if you haven't seen it. But, you know, when I'm at these farm shows and I watch these new items being released, you guys know me, I sit there and wonder, well, geez, what the heck is this thing going to be worth 2 or 3, 5, 10 years down the road? And also, what's it going to do to the value of the prior model? Now, I'll tell you, we had some interesting test cases last week. On Monday, an online auction out of Mason City, Iowa, by my good friends at the Stiffus Group, they sold this 22 model John Deere 9RX 640, 837 hours on it, went for $555,000. Now, the next day, last Tuesday, Merit Auctions had an online dealer auction for AgPro companies, and this 22 model 9RX 640, 619 hours on it out of Ridgewood, Ohio, sold for $550,000. Now, in case you're wondering, the current average dealer advertised price on a 9RX 640 is $716,338. And if we compare to what the auction prices were just a little while ago, we go back to late December. Stiffus Group sold a pair on their December 22nd West Fargo, North Dakota auction. Again, a pair of 22 model 9RX 640s. They had just under 600 hours each and went for $571,000 and $578,000. And actually, if you wind it back farther, last August 28th, I believe, in Williston, North Dakota, same auction company, the Stiffus Group, sold this 22 model 9RX 640 with 520 hours for $661,000, and that's the record. Now, in case you're wondering, the price tag on that new 9RX 830, I can't pin it down exactly, but the numbers I was hearing was $1.2 to $1.4 million.
All right, thanks, Pete. Well, coming up, a story that shows true grit and determination. What one couple in Texas did as the flames from those massive wildfires moved in. Next. We're hearing all kinds of amazing stories coming out of the wildfires of Texas, of firefighters battling the blazes, people rushing to help, and ranchers trying to save livestock as the flames moved in. This image right here was taken east of Shamrock, Texas. That's Delmer and Mildred, ages 91 and 92, doing what they've done for almost 73 years, working the land, helping their family, banding together to save their livelihood. The smoke and haze choking the air as the couple, who walk with canes, worked as quickly as they could to open a barbed wire gate to get their cattle to other pastures. Raina Bird barefoot, sharing it on Facebook, saying the couple showed true grit in the face of the wildfire, and we couldn't agree more. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great week on Farm Country.